Welcome to our channel. Today, we dive deep into the enigmatic landscape of human interaction to explore why the quietest individuals often possess the most significant emotional power. In a contemporary society that celebrates the loudest voices and rewards constant self-promotion, the person who chooses to remain silent is frequently misunderstood or overlooked. However, this silence is rarely a sign of weakness or a lack of opinion. Instead, it is often a deliberate manifestation of emotional containment and psychological strength. By refusing to participate in the superficial noise of the crowd, these individuals create a unique gravitational pull, drawing others toward their steady and unshakable presence. We will investigate the philosophical foundations of this quiet authority and how it reshapes the dynamics of influence in professional, personal, and internal spheres, proving that true power is not shouted from the rooftops, but felt in the pauses between words.
From a clinical perspective, silence serves as one of the most potent tools for observation and assessment. When we speak, we are projecting our internal world outward, but when we are quiet, we are absorbing the intricacies of the environment around us. This state of active listening allows a person to notice micro-expressions, shifts in tone, and the underlying emotional subtext that others might miss in their rush to respond. This heightened awareness grants the quiet person a distinct advantage. They possess more data. By the time they choose to speak, their contributions are often more precise, insightful, and impactful because they have integrated the full scope of the situation. This form of emotional intelligence is rooted in the ability to regulate one's own impulses and ego, allowing for a deeper connection with reality rather than a projection of personal bias or the need for immediate validation from one's peers.
Philosophically, we can look at the concept of the void not as an absence, but as a space of infinite potential. In many Eastern philosophies, silence is the source of all creation and the ultimate state of being. When a person embodies this silence, they become a blank slate or a mirror for those around them. People often feel a subconscious need to fill the silence, and in doing so, they frequently project their own anxieties and hidden truths onto the quiet observer. This makes the quiet person a powerful catalyst for others' self-discovery. The emotional power here lies in the refusal to react or judge prematurely, which creates a safe but demanding space for truth to emerge. The quiet individual does not need to exert control through force. They exert it through their refusal to be moved by the chaotic emotional fluctuations of others, maintaining a center of gravity that is both mysterious and compelling.
In therapy, we often discuss the quiet ego, a psychological construct that involves a balanced sense of self. Unlike the noisy ego, which is defensive and constantly seeking status, the quiet ego is characterized by non-defensive confidence and a focus on growth. This lack of defensiveness is exactly what gives quiet people their emotional power. Because they are not preoccupied with protecting their image, they can remain calm under pressure. While others are reacting with anger or defensiveness, the quiet person remains composed, which can be incredibly disarming. This composure signals to others that the individual is in control of their internal state, and in any social hierarchy, the person with the most self-control is often perceived as the one with the most actual power. It is a form of psychological resilience that allows them to navigate complex social waters without being swept away by the currents of external opinion.
There is also the element of mystery and the scarcity principle at play. In the economy of human interaction, words that are rare carry more value. When someone speaks constantly, their words become a commodity with diminishing returns. However, when a quiet person finally chooses to contribute, their words are weighted with the heavy silence that preceded them. This creates a sense of profound significance. People lean in to listen because they know the speaker has filtered their thoughts through a rigorous internal process. This scarcity of expression makes their emotional engagement feel more intentional and authentic. It is a philosophical stance that values depth over breadth, suggesting that what is left unsaid is just as important as what is articulated. By holding back, they retain a sense of autonomy and mystery that keeps others engaged and respectful of their boundaries.
This leads us to the concept of emotional containment. Some individuals act like a sponge, soaking up the emotions of others and reflecting them back immediately, which often leads to volatility. Quiet people, however, tend to act more like a vessel. They can hold the emotional weight of a situation without leaking or overflowing. This ability to contain one's own reactions provides a stabilizing force for everyone else. In a crisis, the quietest person in the room is often the one people look to for direction, not because they are shouting orders, but because their stillness suggests they are processing the situation rationally. This containment is a high-level executive function that demonstrates a sophisticated mastery over the nervous system. By not leaking emotional energy through unnecessary chatter or nervous gestures, they conserve their power for when it is most needed, making their eventual actions or words far more decisive.
Silence is also a form of strategic communication that can be used to set boundaries and maintain dignity. In many high-stakes negotiations or interpersonal conflicts, the person who can endure silence the longest usually wins. Silence can be a powerful no, a way to refuse participation in a toxic dynamic without escalating it. It communicates a level of self-sufficiency that says, I do not need your validation, and I am not afraid of this pause. This can be incredibly intimidating to those who rely on verbal dominance to feel secure. Philosophically, this represents the strength of the inner citadel, an idea from Stoicism, where the mind remains an unassailable fortress regardless of external noise. The quiet person understands that their peace of mind is not up for debate, and their silence is the wall that protects that peace from the intrusive demands of the world.
Neurologically, those who are naturally more reflective often have higher activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for planning, complex cognitive behavior, and moderating social behavior. This internal processing means that while they may appear inactive on the outside, their minds are incredibly busy synthesizing information. This quiet brain is optimized for depth rather than speed. When we look at leadership, the most effective leaders are often those who listen more than they talk. They gather diverse perspectives and allow their team to feel heard, which builds deep loyalty and trust. This is a form of emotional power that is earned through respect rather than demanded through authority. By giving others the space to speak, the quiet leader gains a comprehensive understanding of the human landscape they are navigating, allowing them to make moves that are both strategic and empathetic.
The quietest people often possess a form of invisible influence that operates through the subconscious. Because they don't force their ideas onto others, their suggestions, when they do offer them, feel less like an imposition and more like a shared discovery. This lack of friction allows their influence to seep into the collective consciousness more effectively than the abrasive demands of a loud personality. It's the difference between a sudden storm and a steady, quiet rain. The storm might be more dramatic, but the rain is what actually nourishes the soil. In this way, quiet power is a long-term strategy. It focuses on building foundations and influencing the weather of a relationship or organization rather than just winning a single argument. It is a patient, enduring form of power that relies on the slow accumulation of trust and the consistent demonstration of integrity over time.
It is also worth noting the connection between silence and authenticity. In a world of performative social interaction, the quiet person's refusal to perform is a radical act of being. They aren't trying to sell you a version of themselves. They are simply being themselves. This authenticity is a rare and powerful currency. People are naturally drawn to those who seem comfortable in their own skin without needing constant external reinforcement. This self-assurance is the bedrock of emotional power. When you are quiet because you are content, rather than quiet because you are afraid, you project a sense of grounding that is infectious. Others feel more grounded in your presence. This is why we often find the quietest person in a family or a friend group to be the emotional anchor, the one who provides stability simply by existing in a state of calm self-possession.
We must also consider the role of silence in creativity and deep thought. The quiet person is often an inhabitant of a rich interior world, a space where ideas can gestate without the interference of outside opinion. This internal richness gives them a reservoir of wisdom to draw from. When they interact with the world, they are bringing forth something that has been refined in the crucible of solitude. This adds a layer of intellectual and emotional weight to their presence. They aren't just reacting to the moment, they are responding from a place of deep-seated values and long-term reflection. This depth is inherently powerful because it is difficult to mimic. You cannot fake the gravitas that comes from years of looking inward. It is a power that is built in the dark, in the quiet moments of life, and only revealed when the situation demands it.
From a clinical perspective, we also see how silence can be used as a mirror during conflict. In an argument, if one person remains quiet and calm while the other becomes increasingly agitated, the agitated person is forced to see their own behavior reflected in the stillness of the other. The lack of an equal and opposite reaction causes the aggressor's energy to dissipate. The quiet person, by refusing to engage in the escalation, maintains their emotional autonomy and forces the other person to eventually de-escalate. This is not a passive act, it is a highly active and disciplined use of silence to control the temperature of the room. It requires a high degree of emotional regulation to stay quiet when being attacked, but the person who can do so almost always holds the upper hand in the long run because they have not surrendered their logic to their emotions.
There is a profound beauty in the eloquence of silence. It is a language that bypasses the limitations of words, which are often clumsy and inadequate for expressing deep emotional truths. The quietest people understand that some things are best communicated through a look, a gesture, or simply the act of being present. This nonverbal communication is often more honest and direct than speech. By stripping away the fluff of conversation, they get to the heart of the matter. This allows them to forge deep, soulful connections that are based on mutual understanding rather than just shared interests or small talk. Their emotional power is the power of the unspoken, the ability to connect with others on a level that is felt rather than articulated, creating bonds that are much harder to break because they are rooted in the essence of being.
One of the most interesting aspects of quiet power is how it handles social pressure. Most people feel a desperate need to belong, which often leads them to conform to the group's volume and opinions. The quiet person, however, often stands slightly apart. This perceived detachment gives them the power of objectivity. They aren't as easily swayed by groupthink because they spend more time in their own mental space than in the collective space of the group. This independence of mind is a formidable asset. It allows them to provide a reality check when the group is heading in a dangerous direction. Their emotional power comes from their willingness to be the still point in a turning world, the person who doesn't need to be part of the noise to feel that they belong, which in turn makes their belonging more authentic and sought after.
The quietest people also tend to be the best at detecting deception and manipulation. Because they are not busy formulating their next sentence, they can focus entirely on the other person's behavior. They notice the inconsistencies between words and body language. This makes them difficult to manipulate, as they are essentially reading the room at a higher resolution than those who are talking. Their power lies in their silence being a form of protection, a way to stay under the radar while they assess the true intentions of those around them. This vigilance is not born of paranoia, but of a deep respect for the truth. By staying quiet, they allow others to reveal their true colors, ensuring that when they do commit to a person or a cause, it is based on a solid and accurate understanding of the situation.
Furthermore, The quiet person's emotional power is often tied to their capacity for empathy. True empathy requires the suspension of one's own ego to fully take in the experience of another. This is naturally easier for someone who is already comfortable with silence. By quieting their own internal monologue, they can hear the subtle frequencies of another person's distress or joy. This deep listening makes others feel profoundly seen and heard, which is one of the most powerful emotional experiences a human can have. Consequently, people develop a deep sense of loyalty and affection for the quiet observer. The emotional power here is not one of dominance, but of profound connection. They become a sanctuary for others, a place where people can go to be their true selves without fear of judgment or interruption.
In a philosophical sense, we could say that the quiet person has mastered the art of being rather than doing. Our culture is obsessed with doing, talking, acting, achieving. But being is the foundation of all significant action. The quietest people represent the power of the foundation. They are the roots of the tree, invisible beneath the surface, but providing the stability and nourishment that allows everything else to grow. Without them, the structure would collapse under its own noise. Their emotional power is the power of endurance. They are often the ones who can withstand the longest periods of hardship because they have an internal reservoir of peace that is not dependent on external praise. This resilience is perhaps the most impressive form of power there is, the ability to remain whole in a world that is constantly trying to break you apart.
We must also consider the role of boundaries. Quiet people are often the masters of the soft boundary. They don't need to shout to get their point across. Their silence speaks volumes about what they will and will not tolerate. If you cross a quiet person, you might not get a loud reaction, but you may find yourself met with a cool, impenetrable wall of silence that is far more effective than any argument. This is a form of emotional self-defense that maintains the individual's dignity while sending a clear message to others. It's a reminder that their energy is a gift, not a right, and it can be withdrawn at any time. This ability to walk away or simply stop engaging is the ultimate form of power, as it demonstrates that the quiet person is not dependent on the interaction for their sense of self-worth.
As we move toward a future that is increasingly cluttered with digital noise and constant communication, the value of silence and the power of the quiet person will only grow. We are starting to realize that the loudest voice isn't always the right one, and that the most influential people are often those who work behind the scenes, listening, observing, and acting with precision. The quietest people among us are a reminder of the importance of the internal world. They challenge us to look deeper, to listen more carefully, and to find our own center of gravity. Their emotional power is a testament to the fact that you don't need to dominate the conversation to change the world. You just need to be present, be authentic, and be willing to hold the silence until the right moment arises.
In conclusion, the quietest people hold power because they have mastered the most difficult human skill, the ability to be alone with oneself. Their external silence is a reflection of an internal order. By not being a slave to the need for attention, they are free to see the world as it truly is. This clarity is the ultimate source of emotional authority. Whether in the boardroom, the therapy office, or the home, the quiet individual provides the calm, the perspective, and the depth that our world so desperately needs. So the next time you find yourself in the presence of someone who speaks very little, don't mistake their silence for absence. Instead, recognize it for what it is, a profound and concentrated form of emotional power that is quietly shaping the reality around you. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of the silent strength that resides within us all.